So it looks like it's 8 p.m. So why don't we get started? So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Mike Thompson, KG4JYA. A little while ago, Chris Prioli, 82CS, had come to me and said, you got VARA working. You think you could put a presentation together and fill a DigiNet or two? And I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. So this is the result of that effort. I said it before, I'll say it again. I am by no means an authority on this subject. I'm just showing you pretty much what I got together to get to work. I am all for keeping this very open. If you got something to say, speak up and say it. If you're talking on a radio, make sure you're muted. Just because I know that I don't know everything and I have very well missed something. So with that said, why don't we get started? So the topics that we're going to discuss are basically, I'm going to start very elementary. I'm trying to keep this because I don't know everybody's level of involvement with using this program, because everybody has their own equipment. Everybody has their own level of competency with using the products. So I'm just going to kind of start very elementary to just talking about a digital mode landscape and the different ways that we move data around digitally over radio. The one thing that I did want to talk about, which seems to be for me, it was a point of a lot of confusion, is all the hardware that's associated with it, because you got things talking to other things, and you need to make sure that you're aware of all the things that are going on in between to be able to get something to work properly. A lot of people have some trouble with getting VARA to work, and from my experience, it's always been the levels involved. It's very finicky in that respect. So then we're going to talk a little bit about what VARA is, and then the different types. There's VARA FM and VARA HF. There's more than those two, but those are the only two that we're going to be talking about, and then how we could use that with WinLink Express. So first, the digital mode landscape. And if you see me looking on my camera over here, I'm actually looking at the monitor that's sharing. So as far as digital messages, I just wanted to take, and you'll notice that some of these slides are kind of either directly taken or paraphrased from some of John Pierce's slides. So I want to talk a little bit about the digital messages and the creation of them. So you would have just basically your standard message, hello world, maybe. And then you're going to want to put it in some sort of format, which is associated with the protocol. You could have, and I'm not going to say some of the elementary protocols, but you got protocols like FT8, you got packet, and you got VARA. So you're going to need your, for the connected modes, well, not necessarily the connected modes, but just for certain modes, you're going to want your to call sign, your from call sign, the message, and basically a little chunk after it to say, did everything come, is everything add up properly? And that's what your checksum is for. And then what's going to happen is you're going to create that as coded audio data. So it's going to be in some data format, and we have like MP3 or PCM, or they have other ones like OGG and all sorts of video and audio codecs that can be used. And then you're going to have a device that's going to convert that into tones. Okay, and then ultimately you're going to key the radio and then send the tones out. And then we have the layers, which is another expression which basically shows the tiers that you're dealing with here. So you got your application, which would be your WJSTX or whatever that program is, your MMSTV, or you would have WinLink in this in this particular circumstance. And then you would have some sort of modulator to be able to take that data and then change it into something that could be used on your radio. And then, of course, you're just going to create a tone and then send it out. And you can see over here, we basically have WinLink, VARA FM. A lot of you guys have signal links. I use a signal link and a Masters Communication DRA50, which is what is being used at the Clubhouse WinLink RMS. And here's some examples of the different layers. You can see over here, you got the different message types. Would be like, WinLink Express, APRS is a type of message. FL message is one, FL amp is another. You could have just the standard digital QSO, right? And then you have all the protocols that you're going to use to express this data. So you have AX25, VARA FM, FT8, MF, SK128, RTTY are just some of the examples. And then you have your modulator. You can see down here, you got the old style TNC. I have never used the TNC. I've seen how they work. I think they're kind of interesting. I came into the hobby when sound modems were becoming big, packet sound modems. Now we have VARA. You can see that VARA product is a product of VARA. VARA FM is a VARA product. WSJTX has different modes. You have FT8, you have JT65, I think is another one. FL Digi, they have many modems, and we've seen that in the last DigiNet session. And then we have our devices. You got Signal Links, DRA 50s, radio sound cards, believe it or not, it happens. You have Vox, and of course your TNCs. And this controls both the audio and the PTT of the radio. So I'm just going to surf through this real quick in case, sure, a lot of you guys already know about this stuff, but if you don't, it's just kind of something that'll set the base for you, I think. So for me, I took some time to consider hardware. There's different interface types. You can see here that you have a radio sound card. You got your DRA 50, Masters Communication DRA 50. You have your USB signal link, and I'm sure, has anybody out there seen these? The Signal Link SL1? That is what I started out with. There are no knobs, and it's basically just an extension of the sound card in your PC with a Vox circuit to trigger the PTT. So they're out there. I've used one for years. I don't currently use it, but that's just to give you an idea of the different interfaces that are out there. So the things to consider with these types, how does it connect to the computer? Is it USB? Is it using the headphone and microphone like the SL1? Do you use a CAT connection, which is an RS-232 connection going into the back of your radio that's sending commands for tuning in PTT? How is it going to connect? Is it going to connect to the RJ45 port on the front of your radio, or is it going to be through a data connector? And then once you connect the audio, are you going to be triggering the radio or sending it commands over, the CAT connection? So these are the things, if you're putting a system together, you're going to want to consider. Okay. Also within the interfaces, do they have jumpers and pots inside that you could tune for leveling? Oh, there's a packet. Somebody was sending packet. Anyway. Okay. So a few things, this is the SL1. You can see it's pretty simple. You got your Signal Link. I'm sure that you guys are all familiar with this. And I'm sure a good portion of you have. I have both this and the Masters Communication DRA 50. I put DRA XX up here because there's many versions of this. You could get it with the DIN version that goes into the port in the back of your radio. You could get it with an RJ45 connection. The thing that I always noted here is that there are many jumpers and pots in here that you will need to consider. So triggering the PTT, what are your options? So you have a Vox interface, okay, which is basically your Signal Link. There's a little Vox circuit in there that's going to trigger based upon the sound level. Like my radio, my FT450 Yaesu, it has a Vox built in. So I could trigger that if I wanted to adjust the levels and hook that directly up to the sound card in my computer. I would be able to do that. I haven't done it because I'm lazy. I'd rather have a solution built for me. Then you have your Masters Communications use their sound chip is a C media chip, and it uses a general purpose input output pin to trigger your PTT. So it actually uses a piece of the sound card, the actual chip that the sound card is made of, to trigger your PTT, and they do that through programming. You could also trigger your radio through CAT connection. I do this with my WSJTX. I use CAT control to trigger the radio. And then, you could have, I have never encountered it, but you could have some sort of driver on your radio that you would control PTT with. So these are some of the things that you need to consider. This was a big one for me. Level controls. There are many different level controls. Usually they're all tied together, but sometimes they aren't. So on your computer, you would have levels at the application. Like, you could have a slider inside VARA. You could have levels for the interface. The actual sound card interface has levels associated with it. You could have your operating system has default levels, and is your default patched into whatever device you're using. These are things you have to know, so you're not sending the signal to all these different areas. So the interface levels, you could have external knobs, you could have internal knobs, you could have internal jumpers. I don't know if anybody's aware, but the signal link actually has jumpers inside for onboard amplifiers to boost your signal either going or coming. And then that would greatly affect what your knobs on the front of the unit do. So then you have, in addition to that, radio levels. The thing that I thought was interesting is, depending on if, I have a Kenwood TMG 707. It's an older radio, but that's what I use for my 2-meter 440 rig, and I use it for packet. So it has a data port on it, but it also has the RJ45 microphone. And for years, I just used the RJ45 microphone on the front of it. And it, I would have to make sure that my squelch was off when I used it, because it, the squelch went through that. But using the data port in 9600 mode, it just goes directly to it. It just goes right to the, I believe, the discriminator. So there's no squelch or anything. So you need to kind of consider, are you going to have to deal with squelch or not? And then, within the radio, sometimes you could, configure data port levels, microphone levels, and box levels. I know my my FT450 HF rig, you could play around with all those levels. Any questions so far? Is it all standard stuff or comments? All right, looks good. We got Doug's approval. I'll move on. Okay, so what is VARA? So this is kind of the standard boilerplate slide that we have whenever we ask what VARA is. It was developed by this fella, EA5HVK. It's a proprietary protocol. I have a love-hate relationship with that, and the fact that you got to register it, and the fact that you really can't see what's being transmitted. But it's my personal feeling of it. It's a connected mode. There's, in my experience, I feel that there's a lot of power with a connected mode, because you can talk about how good the signal is back and forth. That is an important aspect of this mode, I believe. It uses multiple tones. It's automatic speed sensitive and compressed, and it has automatic speed settings as we go on. Took me a while to say this one: orthogonal frequency division multiplexing. I've never really been involved with that, but I did a little bit of reading, and I know probably just enough to sound pretty stupid when I talk about it. So there's different flavors of VARA. Okay, we're going to be talking about VARA FM and VARA HF. There is also a VARA satellite. I've never played with this, never installed it, not even sure how it works, but it is out there. So let's talk about the anatomy of the connection from my perspective. And if anybody's got any other thoughts, just let me know. So first, what we do is we connect to the station, and you'll hear all kinds of goofy tones as it negotiates a data rate. And once it does that, it agrees to something, it'll transfer some data. And then after it transfers some data, you'll hear some goofy tones, and it'll renegotiate the data rate to see if it can get a faster connection. And it'll keep going. Now, in Al's case, he's seeing quite the opposite. He's getting a really fast connection, and then every time it renegotiates, he's getting a lower connection speed. So it'll go around in circles and do that until it finally disconnects, and then you're no longer connected. So that is a major advantage, in my opinion, over packet, is that it'll constantly look for a better way, better, faster way to connect. So this is when I looked up orthogonal, multiplexing, I came up with this picture. And basically, it just, from my understanding, is it just uses many tones to be able to get data across. It'll use many different tones to, I don't know if some of it's redundant or not, but it uses multiple tones to transmit data. And we'll see a little bit more about that right here in this slide. So these slides are important because what they show is that there are different levels. So whenever it renegotiates speed, it'll settle on one of these levels. These levels are associated with carriers and modulations. They're also, you know, I don't necessarily think carriers and tones are the same thing because, you know, we'll see when we look at HF why that confuses me a little bit. But you can see here some of the data rates. You could get up to about 25K, 25 BPS, 25K BPS. Sounded like the other day, you know, when Al was making his connections, he was getting up to around 22 and it just kept dropping down. And you can see as it goes up levels, it'll change modulation methods. So this is what the table looks like for, you know, VARA FM wide and VARA FM narrow. And those are two different ways of doing it. Basically, if you are set up to transmit and receive at 9600 BPS, you could then get the benefits from VARA wide, VARA FM wide. Otherwise, you're going to stay narrow and just, you know, kind of do VARA FM narrow. I'm stuck in VARA FM narrow land. And so pretty much anybody who's not registered will not really be able to benefit very much from VARA wide. So VARA HF also has a table. You can see here they have a tactical and they have a 2300 and a 500, which is 500 is the HF version of narrow. It's 500 hertz wide. This one's 2300 hertz wide. And you can see here all the different carriers, all the different modulations. They have the speeds. I've never really, you know, I have a very poorly effective antenna. So my VARA HF speeds are not really good. Any questions on speeds? No, I think we're good. And, you know, just for extra measure, we got VARA SAT speeds, which again, I've never played with. So the different programs that work with VARA, and there's more and more every day, but these are the ones that I know about. We have, you know, VARA, we have WinLink, which I'm sure everybody's aware of. We have VARA Chat and VARA Terminal. VARA Chat and VARA C, they're, from what I understand, they're very similar, but VARA C has more of a Windows type chat client feel, whereas you could see things like when the other station's typing, or you could send emojis if you feel like doing that. So there's that. I've been interested in this. I've installed it. I haven't been able to connect to anybody, but I haven't been able to get on any nets where people are playing with it. So, you know, I don't know, maybe we could get one together and play with it if there's any interest in it. So as far as installation goes, okay, you could just visit the website of this fellow right here. You know, I got it right here. And it'll bring you directly to the latest versions that he has. And all these products are his. Okay, VARA C is not a product of his. It is a product of somebody else. But they use the VARA protocol. So basically, you just click on it. What I do is it has some goofy file transfer that's used. I make sure that I hit this down arrow and do standard download. Otherwise, it's going to try to install an app on your computer that's going to try to manage everything whenever you try to download something. So a word to the wise. You're going to want to run this as administrator. So right click and run as administrator if you're in Windows. And you're going to want to make sure that this is the file path. This is the one I showed you earlier, Gary. This, you know, where the executable is in this main path. The reason why it's important to use this path is because all the other programs that would automatically open VARA to be used will know where to go. Otherwise, you're going to have to, if you change this, you're going to have to make sure that any program you install that uses VARA knows where to find the VARA executable. Okay, so on to what VARA FM looks like. So here we have a layout, and I could use, I could use assistance if I got something wrong here, because, I'm just this is just all based on my experience. So we got a few different things. We got a graph over here that shows speed. We got a constellation, gauges that make things look like you're in a car, and a status bar. So the gauges are kind of a real time. Yeah, they show you what's going on in real time. The ones that I've always gotten good success when VU is at about 75%. You're going to want to try to keep the CPU out of the red. The clubhouse station is usually like balancing right between the top of the green and the beginning of the red, and sometimes in the red. And then I use these lights sometimes, when you'll see data coming in, or you'll see an ACK or an ACK. It'll tell you if it's acknowledged or not acknowledged. Just helps to see where things are going. So the graph basically provides what your BPS looks like, and it just kind of scrolls across the screen and it auto sizes. Green is what's being received. Red is being what's transmitted. When I first installed this, I kept seeing the colors change, and I was like, what is it doing? Until I noticed that down here, you can see in the status bar, it's either transmitting or receiving. So you want to see this as high as possible. The constellation, this confused me because I've never really had much experience with these. What I have noted is that each one of these doesn't represent a carrier, but a tone, and the closer that it gets to the center is the clarity of the tone. You want a tighter pattern. Okay, so right here you can see that we're going at kind of level 1 transmit, which is 566 BPS. But then down here, all these other little blocks here show that you're up here at level 10. And I did some looking, and I guess this is 8 by 8, so that's 64. And then if you go back, if I could go back for a moment, there we go. Were we at level 10? No, this was FM wide. So level 10. You can see that 64 QAM. So I'm guessing that it's using 64 different tones to do this. I don't know that much about QAM, quadrature amplitude modulation, but that would be my guess. So go back here, and you can see he's got a pretty good data rate here. So of course, unregistered version will not exceed 4 segments in my in my experience, so it won't go very fast. So the status bar has a lot of goodies in it that you could that could help you along. You're right here, you'll see either TX or RX. It'll be either green or red. You'll see right here, you'll see the stations that are connected, and you could actually see when 2 other stations are talking to one another. You could see them reach out to one another in this status, in this little status area. Also, if you send a CW ID at the end of your transmission, it'll tell you that here. So over here, you have a current bit rate along with the associated level for the piece of software that you're using. So this would be VARA FM. So this would be level 1 for VARA FM if you're narrow or wide, which is over here. Right here, you'll have your bytes transmitted or received. This is a TCP light to see if you have a communication going. It'll be green or red, and busy or not busy down here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about configuration. So here, and I could actually bring mine up to kind of illustrate it a little better. Why don't I do that? Bear with me. There we go. This is the VARA setup. Okay. So this is mine right here. You can see I obviously have an unregistered version. But if you look down,
inflation, we're paying for all that spending the money that we don't have for inflation.
Oh, hearing somebody talk about economics there. I just muted you. Okay, so right here, you have your TCP ports. If you're not familiar with how they work, don't touch them. everything should be the same there. If you do touch them, know what you're doing, because really this is where you're sending commands back and forth and data back and forth to, say, WinLink or any other program that would be utilizing VARA. So, you know, if I was using VARA C, there would be commands and ports that would go back and forth. The interesting thing about VARA C is that you could use two instances of VARA, one to communicate and one to monitor. And you might want to use different ports for that, depending. And then here you could digipede if you have a registered version. You cannot digipede if you do not have a registered version. That would mean that you would be listening and then pass the traffic along. Right here is where you would set narrow and wide. You can see down here they have a data port, and you can see how it's hooked up. You see this little 1200 here? Well, if I change that over to wide, it gives me a different configuration. So it uses this pin over here. And that's the pin that's independent of squelch. So, and I set the retries to 2. That was the default. That's what I left it at. I know that nobody wants to have 10 retries on FM, because generally speaking, if you can't connect on FM with 2 tries, there's probably something else wrong. Okay. All right, where do we go here? Okay, so the PTT configuration. And if you look here, let's see. Oops, no, that's the wrong window. I got to drag this over here. So what's illustrated here, oops, bear with me. Not letting me move. There we go. When you choose different things, it's going to give you different suggestions. See that? Or settings. So like if I was to control PTT with cat control, you could put in your radio and the COM port, the baud rates, all that. I don't use it, so I don't need it. So I just leave it the way it is. You could also have the COM port, where you pick your COM port and you pick whatever pin you want to use to trigger the PTT. This is used in a lot of other programs. RA board is a master communication board. So it's going to tell you what to do with your levels. I personally have Vox set up. So it's saying, okay, set the speakers to this. And I don't do that, but you know, if you're just setting it up, go ahead and do it and see what kind of, you know, success you get with it. And you can see the 4 of them are illustrated here, a little larger for you. So as far as the sound cards, you just want to make sure that you pick the right sound card. I think you had a problem with that the other night, Steve. That's right. Remember the one that you had the wrong sound card, I think. And Lord knows that they're easy enough to get confused, because you know, I have 3 or 4 different sound cards, and if you just leave them as the default name and you have 2 signal links, you're going to be confusing yourself. So unless you name them. So just make sure that you got the right sound card for the input and output, you know, the one that's going to be hooked up to the radio that you're using for FM. You know, I try to, my signal levels, with reference to the other slide where they're telling you to use 100% on your Vox, I play with my sliders enough so I could get a good drive level at around, you know, -12. This way, if I need to adjust on the fly, I could just bring up this screen and adjust it on the fly right next to the tune button or the auto tune button. And we'll see them in a little bit. So the tune button, this generates a 1500 hertz tone. And if it's working correctly, it'll trigger your PTT. If you're using Vox and it, you know, I usually, and it doesn't trigger your PTT, that's what I usually check is the level controls. Make sure your Vox is set correctly to be able to trigger the PTT to give proper tune signal. Really don't use this too much in FM, because, you know, this feature, right, the ping and the auto tune is just so much better. So ping is a little something that you could use to just see if a station's within range, or if, you know, your PTT is working correctly. In this instance right here, you could see, you could even go through a digipeater. I'd gotten Carl's permission to use his RMS to play around with during, our talk here. So you can see here, I'm going to ping the W2MMD-3, and I'm going to do that via W2KBF-10. So when we do that, you're going to see it's waiting for a response. And if you're listening to the radio, you could actually hear it initially connect. Well, you don't hear anything when you're transmitting, but you hear Carl's radio then transmit, and then you hear W2MMD transmit, and then you hear Carl transmit again, and it bounces back and forth when everything is good. So when everything is not good, you'll get, no signal. In the top example, you can see Carl's was either unavailable or not within range, or W2MMD-3 was unavailable and not within range. W2MMD-3 was not available today. So my pings failed today, which caused me to go to the clubhouse and reboot the machine. But when it does work, what you'll see here, and I can hear people out there doing it right now. I can hear people do it. Everything looks good. You'll get a reply, and you won't see anything from, Carl's machine. It'll just be the communication between you and W2MMD. So the auto tune feature is really good because it'll tell you what you need to do. It will suggest things for you. So it'll reach out to the desired station and send 10 packets of data at incremental volumes to see which way you need to set your sliders. So, if the signal is heard from the station, you'll get a reply and it'll tell you what to do. So ultimately, you're looking for the seal of approval here. So, when everything is set properly and W2MMD-3 likes you, it'll send you this. If it fails for whatever reason and it cannot hear you, it'll just say no signal. Now, if there is a problem that, is not, it can hear you, but it, doesn't quite feel that you're where you need to be to communicate at a higher speed, it'll start to make suggestions for you. And you can see here that it's telling me to turn my TX knob down on my signal link. Now, just to be clear here, it doesn't think or know that you have a signal link hooked up. It's just guessing. Okay, it's just how it's expressing it. If you might see this when you have a master's communication. In that case, you either want to turn the TX knob down the pot on the board or your sliders inside your software. So likewise, if you cannot hear anything, it's going to, tell you that you need to go into your recording panel, and it'll even go ahead and open up your, your sound properties for you if it can. All right, so I guess we could just demonstrate some stuff now, because has anybody got any comments on VARA FM? Questions? Thoroughly bored? So what I use for demonstration purposes, like let's see here. I will go ahead and do some demonstrating. You can see here that my radio hears something. Somebody's out there doing something. And we could do here. My radio is tuned to 145.030. If anybody wants to listen in. I could reach both Carl's RMS and the Clubhouse RMS. And you can see here, I don't know why I'm set at 6. I thought it was at 12. Okay. So tuning is kind of boring, so I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to do an auto tune. And we have that here. And let's see. Turn my radio up. All right. Another thing I'm going to do here, if anybody wants to see it, it's going to be a little tough. Just bear with me here for a moment. So this is my signal link when the camera stops moving here. See, it's on. This is my PTT. When I click this, it's going to send a series of, 10 incremental packets. And you'll notice that the first couple of them won't trigger my PTT. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Oops, I guess. Oh, hold on. I got to get this out of the way. There we go. All right, we'll try this again. Do auto tune. Bring this over here. And here we go. Yeah, it took up to the 4th level before it did anything. And then you can hear WMMD come back with me. So there, that's a good indication that everything works properly. So now what I could do, no, I can't do that. So let's see here. Let me try turning the TX knob down all the way and trying it again. I'll probably just get a failure. Oh, it did trigger. Yeah, you see, didn't even come in with a response. So these are the types of things you got to play with. So we could then, let's see here. Close that. Let's ping. Let's do some pinging. So here, what I'm going to do is, let's change it around. Let's ping Carl and then see if we could use W2MMD-3 as a digipeater. Yep. So you can see my constellation here is nice and tight. You can see the VU is a little low, but I did get a good connection. So likewise, I could go backwards.
And the VU is actually high because it's red.
Oh, okay. Good point. Thank you. All right, so let's try it again. A little messier, but it did come in good. So for the purposes, demonstration purposes, this is how we make sure that everything is working fine with VARA. Oh yeah, what do you got? You got a question, Charlie? You're on mute. Let me unmute you. It doesn't allow me to unmute you. You got to unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay. What exactly is being transmitted?
Just a little bit of data. It's just pinging. It's just saying, hello, this is KG4JYA.
It's kind of like FT8.
No, not like that. That's a little different because you're looking, because FT8 is saying, I hear you and I am in this grid square. This is it. If you're familiar, go ahead.
But is it transmitting nothing, no verbal?
No, there's no verbal. No, it's all strictly
It's just
data.
like it's like set up like FT8.
Yeah,
Where
in that
you have
respect,
to-
it is.
You have to program into the program what you want it to send to the other station and just hit enter and it transmits it.
Well, for the purposes of ping, no. But you can, like with VARA terminal, VARA chat, and VARA C, yes, you can type in stuff on the keyboard, hit return, and it'll encode it and send it.
Okay.
Yeah, for ping, it's basically it's like kind of like a little off-the-shelf tool that has all the information in it that any station receiving would be able to hear and know what to do with. It's a tool.
Okay.
Any other questions? So just as who was the one I heard out there pinging things around? Who did that? Anybody want to speak up? Oh, okay, it was Rich. So, and Rich, you don't have a registered version, do you? I'm guessing not.
No,
Okay. Well,
No, I can't hit Carl.
you can't. Okay, so you can't get to Swedesboro.
I hit 3, but when it tries to go to Carl, it comes back, says no signal.
So you did like what's on my screen.
Exactly.
Oh, no, you wanted to ping Carl, but do a via of W2MMD.
I should have done it the other way around.
Yeah, so I'll put it up here like this. You want to do this and W2MMD-3. So what you're doing is you're saying, I want to hear if Carl's out there, but I want to do it through the clubhouse. I just saw Gary do it. If you look down at my status, you can see who's doing what.
Yeah, I got no signal. Do I need the registration even to try a Digipeater?
I got it that time.
So I'm sorry, what was that again, Gary?
Do I need to be registered just to even try a Digipeater?
No, because I'm not registered and I can
Okay,
hit a Digipeater.
okay, then I got no response when I tried it. When I went into MMD-3 and to try to reach KBF-10 Digipeater.
Oh, really? So maybe
Yeah.
you're not getting you could connect to W2MMD-3 though, right?
Well, I haven't tried that lately. Let me just
Okay.
do that.
You can see down here that Rich just got through
All right, let me see.
down here.
That's taking too long.
See, I'm seeing it.
Yeah, I'm not getting a response.
Yeah, I could see that you
Not
sent it,
digipating.
but yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead, Al.
It's not digipeating.
Well, I'm not trying. I'm only trying to go to MMD-3.
Yeah, he can't even connect to MMD-3,
Great.
which is why it's not working.
I'm not here in Richwood. I'm probably between Washington Township and Mullica Hill, if he's Washington Township or Deptford.
I'm going to kick in my linear.
Okay, and Doug, you wouldn't be able to Digipeat because you don't have a registered copy.
No, I was just listening to him on my radio.
Oh yeah, you could see him though, right?
I wasn't.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm seeing a pretty wide pattern here from somebody.
That's me, but I still, that was with about 70 watts. I still can't connect.
I'm actually getting worse from you.
Oh, well, let me try.
So, well, here's a question. So, Al, were you able to hear Gary?
I actually don't have my vertical hooked up to my rig right now.
Oh, okay. All
I'm
right.
sure I can hear him, but I'm kind of surprised that he can't get to the clubhouse there.
Well, I know his antenna is in his attic. Although, yeah, I'm still a little surprised that he can't get it out.
Yeah, well.
We're gonna have to get you an antenna outside, Gary. That's
can't-
all there is to it.
HOA.
I did see a weak signal was detected. Can I see this in the log? Is that possible?
I didn't see a
Oh,
signal.
wait, you know what? Wait a minute. Let me try that again. I was not. Hold on.
Yeah, the log is very useful. You can see other people's signal, what's going on the frequency.
Yeah, I probably should have put a slide in for that. So right here, guys, this log right here, it gives you a great deal of information. You can see that Gary's signal, it says incoming signal weak or unknown. And of course, you can see the cluster was a little messy.
So I should see Gary in my log too?
If you're receiving them, yeah.
No, I didn't get him.
No.
I live in Clayton, so.
It
Oh,
would be
well.
interesting to show this on a map.
Ah,
Have everybody's, just kind of give you a little signal report. So anyway, that's always fun to play with, I think. Again, I just started playing around. We really don't have, I guess there's not really that many digipeters around. I know that there was some talk that, I guess when there's an emergency, it would be nice to have a list of the registered users that have digipeters running. So that would be the more digipeters we get up there, the easier this would get. If we had I'm pretty sure that if I was running a registered copy and ran as a digipeter, Gary would be able to get to both Carl and the clubhouse. So anyway, okay. Close that out and close that out and turn that off. So that's the demonstration that I have so far. We'll do the WinLink demonstration once we get further down. Oh, can still hear people. Do we want to play some more or do we want to move on?
no, we can move on, I reckon.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we're moving pretty quickly through it. Okay, so that brings us to VARA HF.
Ah,
All right, so here we go. You can see the layout is very, very similar to what we have with VARA FM. Of course, the obvious difference is that there's a waterfall down here to be able to see what's going on. So the red lines will basically tell you, what your bandwidth is, whether, from in VARA FM terms, it'll tell you if it's wide or narrow. Here, it's going to be 500 hertz or 2300 hertz. If it's the tactical, I think it'll go up to 2750. And you can see that, it's not so much of a quadrant as it's, just two sections, but that's only because, I could only have slow connections. You can see right here in the status bar, this is where it tells you that I'm sending a CWID. It took me forever to figure out what this was. I guess it was a key. It was a Morse code key, and I just could not see it for the longest time. Okay, so as far as the configuration, again, it's kind of the same. You're looking for a registration key and a call sign. A couple different things here is that, if you're going to be accepting connections, you have to tell it that you want to accept low bandwidth connections. And that's because it's going to take a long time to transmit the data. So you just, out of the box, it's going to say, I don't want to, spend all the time trying to, deal with slow data. Tuner enhancement has to do with, automatic tuners and everything. I really don't know that much about it, but I did flag the CWID because I like to, send my CWID whenever I'm done. If I'm out there, testing things and, I just want to make sure that if I'm causing problems, people will be able to get a hold of me. This RA board PTT is something that you use. You flag this for when you want to use WinLink. So WinLink knows that you're using a master's communication board, even though there is configuration in another area of this program for it. I just, I flagged it and I'm good. The retries up to 15. This may seem like a lot of retries, but remember that we're talking about HF here. So there's bad conditions and RMSs out there, these mail servers, they frequently scan the bands. They go through multiple different bands and it takes them time to go through the different bands listening for a connection. So typically speaking, if you got 15, usually I see a response around 10 because, it's got to go through everything. Okay. The sound card setup, just like the other one, you want to make sure that you got your devices set up properly. You can see, let's see here. I will close this session and just bear with me here. Oh, I know, I'm boring you.
no, I didn't get my nap today.
Didn't get your nap, huh?
No,
All right, so this is my VARA HF, and we will go to sound card. You can see here that I have a different different sound card. This is my master's communication board. You can see here I'm using the RA, the PTT method is on the RA board. I would imagine that I could set it up. Let me see. Where is it? Always got the wrong window open. No, I guess it's just the sound card. So it's just the sound card. Okay. There are no tools available here other than tuning. Now, the way that you would want to use your tuning is, let me see here. Bring up the camera again. Well, I could demonstrate it now or just wait until we get to the end where we could do that. So I think I'll just do that. So, oops, which is very soon. Your ALC, your automatic level control. This was tricky for me because I really just didn't understand it. I didn't understand my radio. I had my radio, my Yaesu FT450 forever, and I really know nothing about it because I never really played with it very much until recently. So if you have automatic level control where you could see it on the radio, you're going to want to hit the tune and transmit and then play around with this slider so you could get it to a point where they say between 1/3 and 1/2 scale, but my personal experience is I want to get it as low as possible to where I could just see it because I don't want the circuit to engage. And I don't feel like I'm going to be putting out any more power if it's engaged. So to me, it makes sense to keep it as low as possible. And I've had good success with it. So with that, I could demonstrate it. So let me bring this up. Let's see here. Need to make sure that the camera is pointing correctly. The problem I have here is that the focus of this is not very good. So as a matter of fact, let me do this. All right. Now I know that's hard to see. This right here is my ALC. So we're going to be looking at this moving back and forth when I transmit. So let me bring that up. Actually, what I think I'll do is I'm going to set my wattage insanely low so I don't bother anyone. I know there's a quicker way to do it, Steve, but I haven't learned how to do it yet. You know that there's a quick button for that, right? For changing RF power. Let's see. Okay, so I will go first get this out of the way and go here. Now I'm going to hit tune. Let's see here. We are good to go. See my ALC? And I'm just going to keep moving it with my slider here. It's very, very touchy. So this is kind of an exercise that you want to make sure that you do. Let's see. 15. Between 15 and 16. I'm going to leave it at 16 and leave it at that. Okay. So now it should be set. Okay, I'm going to kick my power back up. Oops. Bear with me here. Just going to leave it at like 80 watts or something. Okay. So that's really how the only thing that you need to configure is you just need to make sure that you get your settings correct and the ALC setup right. And that should be ready to go. Unfortunately, there's no ping. The only way that you get tested is by connecting to something, which brings us to WinLink Express. And, you know, this is just going to be really short because there's so much to cover in WinLink Express that really the best way to do it is to just play around with it with you guys so we can see. But you could just go to this website and go to the download, and you can see it actually goes to what appears to be an old FTP menu, and you just go into user programs and get the zip file. You make sure that you go through the same thing with VARA. You want it to go in the root directory. Your Windows Defender may object. Just click through it unless you feel that you want to change where you're putting it. And you want to do your configuration. Now, when you configure, you're going to have to sign up for WinLink, and you do that by installing the software and coming into this screen, entering your call sign and a password, and filling out your information and clicking update. And then, within a couple minutes, that'll activate your account. So once you do all that, you want to make sure you got your grid square and all that. That's it. That's really it. So what we could do here is, I could hear people on FM. This right here this is WinLink. I'm just going to close this right now. Let me exit that. So you can see here, this is all my old email. It's basically just like an email client. If you guys are used to email clients, this is essentially the same thing. And if you remember the days, when we were playing around with modems and everything, when you send an email and you're not connected to the internet because you were connecting by phone, it would go into your outbox. And then, upon the next time you connect, your outbox gets transmitted out. So the way that we accomplish that here is if I did like a new email, you can see here, I'll just do it to, oops, let's see here. Don't want that to be capital, right? Gmail. And you just do a test, right? Blah, blah, blah. So there's no send. You could only post to the outbox. And you can see my outbox right here has one in it. Now, how does this deal with VARA? Over here, you have different sessions. You click here, and you can see a bunch of different sessions. With this, if you want to test your WinLink mail to make sure it's working, you would pick Telnet or Telnet, right? And if you did that, it would open a Telnet session and it would use the network to connect. But when we're talking about VARA, you have either VARA WinLink or VARA FM. We won't go into these P2P this week. We could play around with that next time. But right now, we would be sending either with VARA FM or VARA HF. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to pick VARA HF. And then what you have to do is you open the session by using this little button right here. What that does is it automatically opens VARA. How does it do that? Well, we know it knows to go to the default location of where we installed VARA. This is why it's important to go to the default. When you install things, you install them in their default location so you don't run into an issue. Okay. So here you can see two windows opened up. This is your session window from WinLink, and this is the VARA HF. So what WinLink does is opens this session. This session is specifically dedicated to VARA HF. And what this window does is it'll go out and open this program. You can see here that it knows of an RMS and the frequency and the bearing and the quality. And it's actually in my favorites. Okay. How does it know that? It knows that because you could go to channel selection. This is a list that is maintained and updated of all the HF stations that are probably available in your location. You never want to update by a radio. Always update by the internet if you can. If you update by radio, you're going to be here all day. So typically I'll go out here. I do have my rig tuned to 7.105. I think I could get to it. And it might work and it might not, because really my 40-meter antenna is two 40-meter mini ham sticks. So it's a roll of the dice if I could get out. Oh, where is it? Yeah, I don't see anything with that frequency, and I might not be able to be tuned to it, but I could try it. I guess I could try it. I'm gonna leave this the way it is, right? And I'm gonna try to connect, and you do that by clicking start, okay? And what this is gonna do is, it's gonna take the mail from my outbox and then send it to this RMS. The RMS will connect to the internet and deliver the email. So let's give this a shot and see if this works. Hopefully my antenna tuner is set. So here we go. And I might do an abort. The channel appears to be busy. That doesn't look like it's busy. Or is it? Let's see. Let me do a cancel and turn my radio up. See, I don't hear anything. Oh, wait, I do hear stuff. So really what we want to do is, you want to monitor. It's saying that this is busy. It's a green light. And it told me, it was like, look, it's busy. Do you want to connect anyway? So, you know, as a general courtesy, I'm going to say no, I don't want to do that. But what we can do is I can exit this and just close VARA HF and say, well, you know something, I think I want to send it using VARA FM, and then open that up. And then what you're going to see is my VARA FM session opening up. And you can see that there is no connection here. Oh, yeah, let me do the favorite. Select. Okay, so now we don't have any tuning, so it's really not going to tune the radio. In VARA HF, I have it set up to tune my radio. But, you know, we have everything set up here, so I'm going to make sure nobody's on. And then I'm going to start. And then you can watch everything happen in the VARA session, and then the log of what's going on over here in WinLink. You can see it's connecting. We got our little constellation status going. You can see I'm moving data, bytes received, and you can see stuff's going on here. It's telling me that I'm on the RMS. Now it's talking in WinLink talk here. And you can see it's sending an email.
So you can send through WinLink even if you don't have the registered version?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right.
It's just going to be slower. So and you don't even need VARA at all. So you could, you know, here's something else that we could do. It's kind of outside the scope of what we're doing here, but you know, I'll show you guys anyway. We're getting to the end of the hour, so I don't want to keep you guys. I have it set up so we could do packet. I could do this by packet. So I'll open that session. And why is it? Okay. So now it opens my sound modem, and it's going to use my sound modem. So when I click start, looks like it failed. All right, let's stop it. So here's something we could try. I'm pretty sure Carl has his set up. What is it? ABF-10. Let's see if I could get a check for email from him. Yeah, you see now he's replying. So this is old school packet radio. I don't know why it's not doing anything. Not checking anything. So that's interesting. It does say that I'm connected, but that's about it. So that's not working. So anyway, the purpose is that you could send email through the radio a couple different ways. You could send it via packet, via VARA FM, via VARA HF, or if you want to send it by the network, you could do it by Telnet. And we could do that too real quick. How about? And we could discuss this more in the next one. I don't have any slides prepared for it because I just figured that we could all just kind of fiddle around with it and get it to work, however we want it to work. So you can see here that there's a telnet session. Oh, wow. It's not doing anything. That's interesting. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So yeah, you can see, okay. This is something that was just something that I sent earlier on. So you would download the checked message. It's going to go ahead and download it. It's not going to show up in my inbox because I already downloaded it already because it was a duplicate copy. Anyway, let's see here. Exit. Turn this radio off and minimize that. And are there any more questions?
Yes, I have one.
Yeah.
I have WinLink installed on a Windows machine. If I install another incident of it, another section of program on Linux, will it still always use the same password?
Yeah. Yeah. So because you are, yeah, it should use the same password.
So if you install multiple machines, it's still just the same password.
Mm-hmm. And the same registration. If you were to register it, you could use like you could run it. The way that I read the license is that you could run 16 different radios as long as it's affiliated with your call sign and you are in charge of them. So if you could run 16 digipeters like all over the place under your station ID, from what I understand.
Is that a one-time registration?
Yes, it's not subscription based.
Okay.
It is $70. I seem to have a problem with it. I just can't get around to spending that money on it. When I could, I could put that into an antenna or some other piece of equipment instead of a software license of a piece of software that I only use sometimes.
220 radio.
Yeah, perfect. Could definitely use another 220 radio. So anyway, that's pretty much my presentation. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. And there's questions and comments. I'm always willing to learn because I am of the opinion that I definitely do not know everything. So yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
So you're telling me it's going to be $70 for WinLink?
No, I'm telling you it would be $70 for WinLink if you want to run a digipeater or if you want to go at a faster speed. I currently do not have a registered version, and everything that I showed you, I could do on the free version. And just to be clear here, the $70 is to register VARA, not register WinLink. I'm using WinLink Express.
And how much does that cost?
I don't know. I never even looked. I'm just happy with the Express version.
WinLink Express is free, Charlie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's there's a registered version which is just WinLink. It's not the Express version. Okay. Yeah, I figured the next one we could just kind of get, we'll try to get people up and running. If you want to do it, if you want to use this as a session for that, or we could start going over peer-to-peer stuff. I would like to maybe do some peer-to-peer stuff on HF. That would be kind of cool.
We could do we could do peer-to-peer on the repeater as well.
We could try and see how that works out.
Yeah. Just to demo it with something that's reliable, because HF isn't always reliable.
Yeah, and I was thinking that if there is, I hear that we might be able to use 10 meters. It'll be local at night. We don't have to worry about it skipping or anything.
Yeah, but we'll see. You may not be able to hear me, but the rest of you guys can try it.
Okay. Well, what are you effective at on HF?
Effective at?
Yeah.
You have to move
not effective. What can we hear you at? That's what I meant.
You probably have to move about 800 miles away, and then we can probably. I don't think I'm putting out a ground wave at all.
Okay. Yeah, you are stuffed away in that attic of yours.
Yeah, and I got horizontal wires.
Oh,
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Maybe if you were on the moon, you might be able to pick me up. But other than that,
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
I went on HF on KB3PCY and was able to send myself an email.
Oh, okay. All right. And I think that's the one that I had up, wasn't it? That might have been, maybe it wasn't. So let's see here.
I had it up on 80 meters.
Oh, on 80 meters. Okay. Yeah, I'd have to retune for that. Again, because I got these ham sticks, so they're extreme. The Q is extremely high on these antennas, so I have to actually get into my tuner to be able to make it, to make my radio even come close to liking it. Okay. All right. Is there anything else we want to try?
I just tried to get the 7100 on HF with VARA, and it used to work. So I used to use it, when I do HF, I usually use the 7300. I just tried the 7100. It doesn't want to hear about going. It'll tune into the antenna, but it won't go into transmit, even though signaling came on. So I got to look into that now. I'll put that on my list.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So is it possible that what are you using to trigger PTT?
Same old stuff that I've always used,
Okay, so you're using a Vox and a signal link to do that,
And
right?
a signal link. I have a signal link I have 2 separate signal links.
Oh, okay.
And the signal link that's connected now to I swap signal link cables. When I'm changing over to the 7300. Signal link was coming on, but it was not triggering the radio.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought, well, maybe the level, actually the level set on VARA FM was all the way up at 0, and then I switched that VARA at HF, and still not triggering. So there's something goofy.
That is interesting.
It
I
could
wonder
be
what
that the antenna is not loading up and it just doesn't want to, respond to the. I'll have to look at the SWR and all that other crap. So we'll see what happens. It did load up, in tune. If the antenna was not working, it wouldn't have let me tune.
Well, okay. So what frequency were you tuning
I tried at 3573 or 3583 on 80 meters, and I just tried 7040. Where am I here? Wait a minute.
And you're sure the antenna's tuned?
I just tried 7040 on 40 meters, and it's just not coming up. In fact, it's tuning. If I hit tune, I can see it tune. Well, I could see it tune. There it goes. I can see it tuning on the SWR meter, very low power, and the red light goes on. But on 40 meters, when I hit tune on VARA, in fact, it's still in tune. The signal link's not even coming on, so I got to look into that, because that used to work. I used to change radios on occasion and use the 7100 for the HF, signals. But I'll look into it.
Okay.
I hardly ever use it. I use the 7300, so it's really not a big deal. But it would be nice to have it work.
It sounds like it would probably be a good idea if we just did peer-to-peer over the repeater.
Yeah, that's just
everybody would be able to do that. Yeah.
Right. It's a good demo. It's
Yeah.
a good demo. Yeah, we did chat too over the repeater when we did it on the other net.
I would like to try that. Do you have the program? Maybe we could do that too,
And we could try. I think I do have chat. I have to look.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else that tonight you want to give me control back? I mean, I can.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let me see how to do that.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Where do we go for that? I don't even.
You just go to my upper right hand corner, the 3 dots.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. There we go. That's right. And there we go. And yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for your time.
Thank you, Mike, for giving us a great demonstration. Everything worked, just about everything worked without.
Just about.
Yeah.
We'll play some more. So the next
Right.
DigiNet's going to be the RTTY one next week,
Yeah.
right?
You know, I never expect everything to work all at once because remember, the space shuttle cost billions and that failed twice.
Yeah.
So, okay, any other comments, questions? We
2
were
weeks, Mike, 2 weeks, not next week.
No,
Right.
next week is going to
Next
be
week-
RTTY.
It's gonna be a
okay,
RIDI
okay.
thing. I think John is gonna do it. I'll open it up. And because there's a contest coming up in January that John is interested in, and he wants other people who are interested in this in RIDI and the contest. RIDI's a real simple thing in FL Digi, so he's gonna go through that. FL Digi is a good source for RIDI signals.
What kind of hardware do you need for RIDI?
All you need is FL Digi.
Okay,
Just
No,
FL Digi.
You're
FL
holding
Digi.
it. You're holding
Yeah,
the hardware
Right,
you need.
right. Yeah, FL Digi has a RIDI modem.
okay.
Yeah. So I hate to use after John's finished, you'll be all ready. All right, never mind. Awful. Hey, how much did you pay to get in here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll be here through Wednesday. Try the meal. All right.
I just wanted to check with Mike. What time did you reboot the PC at the clubhouse? Because we were in there remotely diagnosing the problem. I think we rebooted it, around.
I think I might have booted you guys off of it because I saw that there were people logged in, but I didn't know how long they were logged in for. I thought they were just zombie sessions, so I just rebooted it. It was around 4 o'clock.
Okay, because we have diagnostics running, so and then we turned off. It used to reboot every night at 11.
Okay.
We turned that off so that we could catch it in a hung state. RMS relay was hung this morning,
Oh, okay.
so it was not responding. So that was the culprit, and we're just trying to get to the bottom of it. That's fine. Just
Well, the next time I run into the problem, I'll just shoot you an email.
right,
Yeah. Okay.
because we're trying to check logs and everything before we reboot it.
Yeah, I don't want to step on anybody's feet. I just did it because I got a presentation coming
Yep.
up.
No, I understand, and we can reboot it remotely. So
Okay.
all right.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
And they actually found out just the other day why a lot of radios hum because they don't know the words. All right, on that.
Wow, we really didn't pay to come in here.
I'll tell you, but you may have to pay to get out.
Yeah.
That's the secret. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, guys. Remember,
See ya.
next week.
All right,
will be
good
the
night,
RIDI
everybody.
thing, and then
Thanks a lot, guys.
the 19th will be the next DigiNet.
Good night.
All right.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
guys. Bye.
Presentation.
Thanks, everybody.